You
I know.
are so
Beautiful.
to me.
I know. Do I like that line? Do I like that last note, or do I hate it?
It really jumps out at you.
I think it's both.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to One Fucking Hour. I am, of course, Evan Husney, joined by my two usual dudes here. To my left, we got Tom Fitzgerald. Sup, Tom?
Hey, how we doing? I thought we were going to call it One Flippin' Hour, the PG version. Is that not taking a take? No.
Well, we will address that controversy here shortly, which we definitely should. But to my right, first and foremost, we are joined, of course, also by Marcus Herring. Marcus?
Aloha.
There it is. There it is. That's actually more
That's your
appropriate
catchphrase.
Yeah,
That's his catchphrase.
for our new rebrand. For our new rebrand, that'll fit nicely.
The Aloha Kid.
Yes, YouTube is deciding to flag our videos for the 18 plus crowd only, probably, presumably based upon the name of the show. So, yeah, that's fun. That we're gonna be one bleep an hour now, guys. What are we gonna be called?
One oohing hour. Flippin'. I can live with one effing. I don't like effing. I don't know. I don't like any of it. Our name is One Fucking Hour.
Yeah, I think
We have
we're
to
just gonna
change
roll.
it for that one person under 18 who stumbled across our videos.
Yeah. Like
Exactly.
Todd in Boise.
Yeah,
This is for you, Todd.
yeah. Let us know when you're 18.
Sorry, Todd.
Yeah, sorry, Todd, and let us know when you're legal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to give a special little kudos shout out to last week's episode. I had a fucking blast on your birthday, Marcus. One fucking hour in Star Wars was actually 10 times better than I ever thought it would be.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I
So
actually
guys.
watched it. I watched it. I don't always watch them, but I was like just entertained. I was like, these guys are great, man. This is fun. This was just really stupid because it's like us and like me and everything. But I'm watching and I was entertained.
I like
But,
that guy on the left.
yeah.
Yeah, he's all right. But the really the MVP was Smoldering Corpses.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
That
might
thank
be
God.
why we're flagged by YouTube.
that made it. That too. Yeah, they thought we were showing like a snuff video or something.
It's hard to believe that anything Star Wars would be flagged on YouTube.
I
At this
know,
point. Like, how many?
unbelievable for many reasons. Yeah,
Yeah, well, if it
But it
is, it's gonna be Aunt Beru's smoldering skeleton.
and that hard rated X film, The Swimmer, that we did a few weeks ago
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
That got
Well,
flagged.
it's basically a naked man running around for an hour, so maybe that's why.
Sure.
It looks,
I get
at a
it.
glance, it looks like nudity. I guess.
Yeah.
There's some butt cheeks in it though, right?
Sort of. Not really.
I don't think so. No.
Joan Rivers gets naked. It's true, once in a while.
Well,
You know, my parents are big fans, and they were pointed out in The Swimmer. Something we didn't talk about is that Ned doesn't have a pool.
oh,
We know that? Is that said in the film?
Do we know that?
They said, well, we'll have to go back and double check, but they said there's a line where they're like, "You don't have a pool." Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Damn. Well, shout out to Marcus's parents, man, for
Yeah.
one up in
Deep cuts.
the boys over here. All right, so
Fish cuts. All right.
all
All right.
right,
Good night,
well,
everybody.
Yeah, all right. See you later.
Motherfucking goddamn
All right, so let's talk about this week. This fucking hour, really excited about hard right turn from fucking Star Wars, but an early 80s great. We are doing one fucking hour on Albert Brooks's Modern Romance.
Hear,
So I'm going to start that countdown so we can get into this episode here. So here we go. Starting the clock right now. All right, everybody. I'm just going to give everybody the quick primer here on the movie. I kind of clipped this from an AV Club review that I actually quite liked about the movie. So Modern Romance is the 1981 anti-romantic comedy directed by and starring Albert Brooks as Robert Cole. He's a film editor whose on-again, off-again girlfriend Mary, played by Katherine Harold, have nothing in common and make each other miserable. Yet he can't cast her away because the idea of her with another man drives him absolutely crazy. Brooks pushes his neurotic persona to near pathological extremes, yet the film consistently finds humor in his sick obsession. He's committed to making it stick, but the days that follow are like a painful detox session, which he survives by any means necessary, including Quaaludes, vitamins, and jogging. So,
well said.
That is Modern Romance. And guys, I had a blast. I just finished it minutes before signing on here, and man, it holds up. I actually really love this movie, and this time it hit harder for me because it is so dark. You know, like at first glance, like you kind of get wrapped up into the charm of this movie a little bit with the performance and everything. But he's such a nutcase, and he's so overly neurotic and so painfully, just like damaged that by the end,
really
by that last 10 minutes, you're like, Jesus Christ, we are on a ride following this person who is really, I don't know, quite fucked up. You know?
He needs help. He needs at least some therapy, you know?
Yeah.
But, well, just for me, like, this is one of those major films I've seen countless times for decades. I didn't see it or anything when it came out. Maybe it was on cable. But it was like when I was in my 20s, my 30s and stuff, it was just like, it was actually on cable a lot. And I just was always like, I guess now I know what I'm doing. I'm going to watch this when it would come on. But I think, you know, blah, 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 it was very entertaining for me, though, all those times I've seen it. But there was one time in in the middle of the hundreds of times I've seen it, that to speak to what you're saying, there's a scene right in the middle of the film. It's before Mary calls him back and says, I like the giraffe. And he's desperately waiting for that. Because, you know, they break up at the start and then he like immediately regrets it and is like, calling and leaving gifts at her house. And he's waiting for her to call back, you know, and confirm like, yes, I want to be back with you. And it's nighttime and he's wandering around in a great lonely city, which is Los Angeles. You know what I mean? And it becomes kind of noirish. And very specifically, I'm bringing up this one scene. At some point, he's just wandering around the pier, and there's some old man on the phone, and he's like, "Hey," and he's waiting because Albert wants to get on the phone and, of course, call his girlfriend and check his messages and stuff. And this guy's on the phone like, "Hey, I know you're with that doctor. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm no fool." And the music gets really like kind of dark with like bell tones, and there's no joke in sight, and it's just like the next shot is him circling her house. It gets kind of OJ, you know? So anyway, that stuck with me because I was like, wow, he pulled all the way back from like ha entertainment. But you know, right there in the middle. What do you guys think, you know?
Real quick, watching that actual section of the movie today, I 100% was like, this is the Tom section of this movie, and it's so interesting because like I was like, yep, that's going to be talked about definitely on the show tonight, just this section, because it does stick out because the movie doesn't really have that much music at all, really, and that section it just swells and becomes this real sort of like cinematic moment where he is really kind of at the bottom. He hits his kind of rock bottom with you know his jealousy and all that stuff. But one thing I think that's really interesting is like I kind of go back to this movie being the kind of, you know, romantic comedy sort of in reverse, or like a romantic comedy on its head kind of idea, because of course the way that it's formatted is that it begins like how it should end, right? It begins with the breakup, right? And then it's all weird because they get back, but then they get back together in the exact middle of the film, you know, and then they wind up, and then of course they wind up getting back together, but then of course they're going to break up at the end of the film, and it's just really
reconcile, and the scroll says that, you know,
right? But it's so interesting to me that it's really a deconstruction of that genre, but also because it has all the tropes, even though it's in the wrong order. In the movie, it does make references to other to films. You know, the fact that, you know, he's an editor and he's cutting movies, and it also makes reference. There's one kind of throwaway line in the film when Albert Brooks and Mary get back together finally, and they're in bed, and he says something like, I know the difference between movie love and real love. You know, and it's this whole idea of like referencing, you know, love in movies and the fact that, you know, he's an editor and all that stuff, you know, and so it is kind of a deconstruction of how love or relationships are looked at in movies, and it's totally subverted because you realize by Act 3, like I was saying, you've been following a fucking psychopath this whole time.
I know, exactly. Like, and you know, again, well, I was going to say, this came to me, and the last time I watched it, you know, there's those re-edits on YouTube where there's the comedy trailer for The Shining, and someone could muster that up, or you know, like a Spring Break movie or something. But then inversely, someone can and did make a horror movie, Harry Met Sally, and I never checked, but it would be almost too easy to make a horror movie trailer for Modern Romance. Right. I mean, the scene I just talked about, but there's another shot that's very chilling where they're at the cabin. She goes out to the phone booth that's at a distance, and she's laughing, you know, and closes the door thing, and it has this implication, if you're insane like him, like, oh, I don't want anybody to hear me talking to Jim in New York, you know, and it has 2 times that they cut to him just staring in this, you know, dimly lit cabin, and it looks like fucking Friday the 13th or something. You know what I mean? So anyway, you know, that would be a very successful edit, and if anybody, or exercise, and if anybody wants to do that, take Modern Romance and make a horror trailer. The 1 fucking hour, your 1 fucking hour friends would really appreciate it, because we'd love to see that. I'm too lazy, I don't want to do it. But like, anyway, we're just getting on that tangent where I think the other thing with that in mind is more and more I'm finding him a pretty repulsive character, like very unlikable to like everyone basically, and very rude and obnoxious, not with intention, but with disregard, you know? Like for instance, he goes on that date that he made on Quaaludes to that woman he doesn't even remember on the phone. And then they drive to this great, you know, restaurant at the beach, and, you know, he picks her up, and then like on the radios, of course, is Michael Jackson's "She's Out of My Life," which is so fun to hear. And like half the song plays out with just them silently driving. And then you realize at the end that he's gone full circle, and he's right back to her apartment. He's like, yeah, I can't do this. And because the song is too evocative for him. And it's funny, but it's also just terrible. He's so terrible to her, you know? Yeah. And there's no right to do that, you know? So just one little last thought I have is, I don't know who Albert Brooks is. I don't know what he's really like. Maybe he's warm and sweet and a wonderful person, a great, you know, husband and dad and, you know, relative, whatever. But meaning I don't know if he's playing like something like him, like, you know, like a Woody Allen thing, like semi-autobiographical. Albert Brooks might be completely different than a lot of his characters, especially this one. Like, but this one is a very he's repellent. He has no redeeming qualities. He's a real jerk socially, you know, and he's totally selfish, and he's terrible to her. She should leave. She seems really great. She's attractive, and she seems very grounded and like very centered. And she just doesn't need a guy like this. He's just he's awful. Like, remember, like they go to the party, and he can't even listen to one of the Globetrotters like talking to him, you know, because he's just staring at Mary. You know, it's just it's horrific, almost like a horror movie, but also it's just like just really bad social graces, you know. So anyway, what I'm saying is I don't know how autobiographical it is. And I would hope and think that he's just completely playing a character, sort of a proto-yuppie, you know, a guy in his 30s going into the 80s, never went to Woodstock, always just wanted to kind of make some money and be ambitious and have like a sort of a middle-class kind of success, you know. And part of the reason he wants to be with her is because it's like she's arm candy kind of to him, and status. Like, he seems very shallow, is what I'm saying. He's a really repellent character. And I don't know if I don't find him charming, but it's funny.
Yeah, looked at it as like there's some relatable things in the breakup, like every song on the radio it's about, he starts listening, every song on the radio is about the breakup, right? That's
Right.
that we've all experienced that. There's like, I thought it was funny that everywhere he goes he's like telling everybody I just broke up with somebody. He's explaining why he's behaving that way, And so like the way I interpreted it was, and like I think there's more, like you're saying, there's more to like his character. But the way that I just sort of like jumped on the ride for the movie was that like he's indulging, like there's relatable things about breaking up, and this character is like indulging every bad impulse that you would have like when you're in a breakup situation, So like he's sort of like, that's what's funny about it, I think, is like he's in this relatable situation, but he's doing the absolute wrong thing that you're not supposed to do. That's how I sort of like jumped on with the character and went along for the ride there.
Yeah, I think that the movie kind of has this like first half where it is about the breakup, and it is kind of, him dealing with that and processing it, and not trying to give into that. And those are some of the funniest scenes in the movie at that first half, right? He plays into the comedy of like, I'm trying not to, break this moment here and call her back and whatever.
I'm going to jog. I'm going to take vitamins. Health.
Yeah, vitamins. Health, vitamins. But then it sort of turns when he gets back with her, and I think that the movie does a really incredible, really incredible job of being very sincere to the process of someone who does have all the narcissistic neuroses that he has in terms of being so possessive and so jealous.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
I think that Albert Brooks, nails in this movie that sort of jealous vibe, when you're in that kind of gray area with someone in a relationship. I think he hits that so nail on the head. And that also impressed Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick.
Isn't that wild?
Who's gone on?
Tell that story.
Yeah, well, it's just not much of a story, but Stanley Kubrick's gone on record, after the movie came out. He called him.
He called Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
More than once, and said he was actually inquisitive. He was like, I've always wanted to make a great film depicting jealousy. How did you do it? Almost like literally, like break it down a bit. He was very impressed. And of course, he wound up doing Eyes Wide Shut later, which might be partly influenced by Modern Romance.
I love that side of Kubrick's brain where he's into like films like Modern Romance and White Man Can't Jump and shit like that. Like that's so.
I know.
I love that.
Can I just say, just total tangent here is, I love hearing those tidbits because he also was really sprung on that great film, Girlfriends. From 1979. We should do that someday. But someone asked him, was like, "What's the best film in 1979?" And he's like, "Girlfriends." And everyone was just, "What friends? What is this?" And and it's great to show he had good taste. Just long story
100%.
short.
100%.
Can I just say like one thing about it? I don't know if I'm confused about his personality or him, the guy Robert, because Marcus, you were saying like he's been hit. With a breakup, and I understand that, and that makes sense to me. But I think we've got a deeper problem because I think that you're not given. It's at least because you're not given the pre-breakup Albert Brooks character. Also, he instigated the breakup.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah,
so he's coming. They're going to have dinner, and she's like, "How's work?" And then he's like, "Let's break up. Let's go. Let's get out of here." And so like he's already coming in hot with a nice big bowl of neurosis.
Yeah.
So
it's all about him.
It right.
Yeah. So meaning like they didn't have another one of those big fights, or she didn't break up with him, or something like that. This is all him. So he's like a tornado of neurosis, and so.
Because he says like I feel bad inside, and I figured out it's because of our relationship or whatever. But he's always carrying around that. Yeah, that I'm feeling bad inside.
He's a deeply troubled person,
Well, I was going to say, it's very, very damaged. He's very damaged, and it's all about him. I mean, that's the narcissism that runs through this movie, is that it's all about him, and it has nothing to do with the fact of that, like, if he likes this person or not, because he doesn't genuinely. It's all about control.
No.
Having her like marry me, and it's all
breaking up is not about the relationship. The relationship's not about the relationship. It's not about her. It's all this internal cyclone that he's got going on, and it's a comedy.
Right? Yeah, I know.
It's amazing. It's very unique.
And that's
it really is a comedy.
I wonder how that like dovetails, like his, how he acts in his relationship, and how he acts in the world with people. How does that dovetail with like his professional life? Because like one of the most interesting things for me in the movie is how much it gets into filmmaking process and editing, and like, and I know we want to talk about those things, but I just wonder, like, is he a good editor? Is he like, or is that affecting his neurosis and affecting like his work too?
I liked his insight on grabbing that shot of the guy. Instead of having the guy say something, have him, like, they just use some B-roll, and it was him looking, back and forth kind of suspiciously, and to have that include the audience, he's good. That was a good idea.
Can we set that up?
The director didn't like it, right? Oh, you want to set it up? Go ahead.
I just want to set that. I just want to set that part up because it's such a
totally. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's such an interesting like passage in the movie where obviously once he's back together with Mary, then we're just kind of lingering on this. I feel like almost 20-minute plus little chapter about.
It's now like the B of the film.
It is, yeah.
It's the B story.
But it's almost just like right in it's just chunked right in there. It's sandwiched in between the other drama of the film, where it's just like, okay, now we're spending time with what Albert Brooks does at work. He's an editor.
Him at his workplace.
Yeah, and he's an editor for this really low budget American International Pictures sci-fi post Star Wars.
That's right. As we are post Star Wars, so is the terrible film. With it's and he's really ticking off the boxes. And actually, if I can, geez, there's so much. I could really go off on Albert Brooks, just generally speaking, but I think I don't know if he's ahead of his time or something, but sort of. What I'm saying is,
Definitely.
Not many people were so savvy that in 1981, maybe people like Harry Shearer and the whole gang that's going to very quickly be, this is Spinal Tap, of course, but it's that kind of really dialing in and getting the accuracy of what a terrible science fiction film would be in 1981. And what I mean is, you got to have a hack lead actor, which is sort of like, like Cameron Mitchell, or somebody. And in this case, it's George Kennedy. So what I'm saying is it's
Marcho.
It's like really well, but like a little washed up guy, like an old Hollywood vet who's like, hey, I'm in outer space. He's got a pot belly, like Ernest Borgnine on Mars,
Totally,
so anyway,
Ernest Borgnine.
What I'm saying is so what he's getting, I guess what I'm saying is that Albert Brooks has the sensitivity and care and concern for the nuance and subtlety, which is so much of all of his comedy,
right.
To do something like that, to get a very realistic portrait of a 1981 like sub Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in Outer Space kind of movie. Like, it's like sub Star Wars, it's like down a notch, even like a C.
Oh yeah.
And of course, and he was like, well, who would be the lead? And he didn't like toss that off to somebody or like half think about it. He was like, no, we got to have George Kennedy, So anyway, I really appreciate that. And just like, it just shows like he has this he's very attuned to the richness of the subtlety in comedy. And it's not for everybody. It's for weirdos like us.
Yes.
Like so much, and I'm not like trying to like big up ourselves, but just it's not for everybody. Like so much would just fly over a lot of people's heads. And it's not even like an age generational thing. It's just so much is just gone. Like if you're not attuned, and I don't want to compliment us. I don't know if that's, the thing, but it's, you're not at any kind of like Three Stooges level of comedy. Like his comedy mutated in this way that is, the nuance is insane. Actually, Spinal Tap is relatively broad. And I was also thinking actually about Seinfeld is relatively broad, and it's great and it's funny. And Larry David, it's great, it's funny, but it's much broader. It's in the same general territory of like cringe meets like pettiness and the smallness of life and making something funny out of it. But like Howard Brooks is like subatomic level, like he's like down several floors where he doesn't do any kind of comedic tell. It's all so dry. It's like, here's a great comic premise. A guy buys running shoes. Oh, good comic gold. Let's do this. So what happens? Well, the guy makes him buy too much stuff and is subtly insulting about like his commitment to his new life of being a jogger. And it's just like, but it fucking is great, and also what we're talking about, which is the nuance of him editing and getting really dug deep and dialing in, to the point where like there's a punchline. This isn't an uncommon punchline. That should say Hulk screaming, not Hulk running. Like his comedy, his attenuation goes so far deep and subtle that is an Albert Brooks punchline. Very few people do that.
Yeah.
So you guys know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Marcus, let's bring it back though just to that scene, that chapter in the film is I was kind of wondering what the whole editing stuff. I was just kind of wondering like, not that he like what's the message of it or what is he trying to say, but it's interesting that in this movie that's baked in there, just this chapter about process.
Yeah, I do wonder what it says about his character, and what it, it's why it's in there. Because there's there's like maybe 3 editing scenes, but 2 major ones, right? And like maybe we could just hit them in order. And like just for a second, I do want to say that like for a filmmaker type person, anyone interested in filmmaking, it is really fun to like get a look into what it was like back then with the Steenbeck and like. Yeah. The actual making the cuts and taping it together, and like they show you the whole process basically, and it looks really fun. And I love too like how long filmmaking used to take. It took 2 guys, and like just any sort of business back then seemed like it took a long time. Like if you had to send a letter to somebody, instead of sending an email, you send a letter, and then have to wait a week for them to send it back to you. I love how business was back then in general, but especially with filmmaking, like it seems like it was like a really it took a long time. So
very tactile,
I love how they show that. That's just sort of like looking back and appreciating it from 2022. But so I love that stuff. But when he's making that first editing scene, when they're cutting, I love the construction of that scene. The way that they cut that scene is great editing too. The way that they take an audience who's maybe not as savvy when it comes to like the filmmaking process, like a 1981 audience may not be like that clued into like editing, but they do a really good job like leading the person down that path. Like they show you the scene twice as like before he makes the edit that changes the tone of the scene, but they make sure the audience really gets the grasp the scene. They don't just like I think they thought like, oh, it might just slip past the audience to watch it once, so let's show it to them again so they really get it in their brain like what was happening in that scene. Then they go back and he cuts that piece out. It cuts out the dialogue line and changes it for the guy doing the eye sort of gesture. And I think that's like, it really helps the audience. It really makes it a very effective scene for the audience. So it's really, I don't know what to say beyond that. It's very cool that they made a scene about editing that is really well edited.
You know what's funny? I just realized something. We were talking about like the set pieces in the construction of this bad film that he's in the middle of. What's funny? There's actually only 1 editing scene, but the other scene at the dictate of the dumb director, played by Albert Brooks, by the way, which is so great.
James
and
L.
he's
Brooks.
so great.
James L.
What
Brooks.
did I say? Oh, right, James L. Brooks and Albert Brooks' movie. But yeah, sorry. The other scene is not about editing. It's actually the Foleying.
It's a Foley.
So it's 2 separate things about like the inner workings of making movie magic. And I mean, who doesn't love a good Foley scene? Yeah. And it rips, dude. Like, so we could maybe talk about that. So, well, see, what I love is that like, it's just, it's a bad film. It's clear. Well, and it's low budget, and the director is kind of a dummy. And just to get into the minutia of how these scenes are working, it's the director is shown a very good editing scheme that does improve this terrible film, and by at least that scene. And he just goes, "Yeah, that's great, but let's not do that." And you know what I really care about? This is his priority. I want his feet to be stomping more when he takes the teleporter machine. And it's like, priorities, nice. So they get into Foleying, and that's more inside movie magic stuff. And it's so funny.
Well, let me throw in this. It just dawned on me because we're sort of talking about how much of Albert Brooks the person is like this character Robert Cole
or not,
or not, and it's kind of interesting because I sort of read those scenes. Obviously, those scenes do help narratively get them to the party with the director. So then, it sets off, it kicks off jealousy stuff, of course. But here's one thing I was thinking of is like, what would Robert Cole, the character, do if he were making this movie? Oh, of course, he would take some time to be extremely fucking petty about all of the assholes he's worked with over the years. And because I've heard that Albert Brooks over the years is very uncompromising. He's he doesn't like to meet in the middle when making movies. It's all his vision or not. And I heard something about like a test screening of this movie went down and people didn't get it, and then as soon as people didn't get it, the studio kind of lost interest. But one of the main things they didn't get was, well, what's wrong with this guy? He's got a Porsche, he's got a job, he's got a hot
What's the
lady.
problem?
What's the problem? But to me... and that just went over everybody's head. But I think in this chapter, he's really doing nothing more than taking a jab at the system and the jab at these dumb other creative people that he's probably had to collaborate with over the years.
Yeah,
because
and
it's
the
very,
union guys, which is just like there's a director, but also the who gives a shit union guys who are just like, I don't care about you, your movie, the creative choice you're making. When's lunch?
Yeah.
That's during the
I love
Foley.
that. Yeah, that great line when he's like, "What do you think?" And then he's like, "I think you saved the picture." Is that a wrap?
Yeah. And then they're like,
so what?
but then they're also like the Heaven's Gate crews coming in at 8:00.
Yeah.
Fun fact. The episode of Siskel and Ebert, the patron saints of One Fucking Hour, they review Modern Romance. They both loved it, and then Heaven's Gate at the same time.
Wow.
So I love that. It's on the YouTube. But
That's funny. So is it even a joke then? I mean, because they didn't know that it was a bomb yet, I guess, right? Like,
I guess it's just
it's a joke.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
It was the most
joke,
notorious thing ever because
I know, but was it already a? Sorry, what year?
Yes.
I'm losing track of what year it came
Yes,
out. You're about to
it was.
explain. Okay.
It was a big controversial thing. No, he added that line during the re-editing, and Siskel and Ebert were reviewing the shorter version that came later.
And
So
funny
the timing's right. You know what I'm saying? Siskel and Ebert, when they were reviewing Modern Romance, a film with Heaven's Gate, they were also reviewing the recut.
I see.
Saved,
Got it.
Saved version.
Got it.
Got
Cool,
it.
thank
Let
you.
me just put
Heaven's
a bow
Gate
on
barely
that.
came out initially,
Right.
Let me just put a bow on that. I just glanced at my notes, and the studio's reaction to the negative test screening of this movie, of Modern Romance, they instructed him to add a psychiatrist into the movie, so we could at least
Really?
so we could at least understand that he has problems, as if
I
it
was
wasn't
saying he needed
fucking
therapy.
obvious.
Yeah. Well, actually, if I might, there's another thing that's kind of on my mind, like forgetting Albert Brooks's career in general, and just really getting a nitty gritty of like 1981. This film was compared, and he was compared somewhat to Annie Hall, and how Albert Brooks was sort of the LA Woody Allen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that works and it doesn't work, or it generally works, like, because, this was probably greenlit as much as anything in the glow of Manhattan and Annie Hall, because not a lot of post Annie Hall Manhattan movies were made, and the few that did were big bombs. And I think that that's probably like Chili Scenes of Winter is another rare example.
Ooh,
but
Heartbreak Kid, yeah.
But like, well, that's 1972.
Right.
But like, anyway, it's just funny to think that there was a time when it was like, probably they were spoken of in the same sentence. You know what I mean? And one thing, I guess all I'm really saying is, as New York City is Woody Allen's, world, like, I like that he makes a very LA film. You know what I mean? And like I said before, like, it's a great place to walk around lonely at night. And he does a nice job of that, going to like an all-night drugstore and buying, in these huge aisles, very anonymous, a lot of anomie, and he's buying like, these, this harshly lit, fluorescent lit environment. And he's lighting like, or he's pulling the cord like, I love you very much, like, teddy bears, and it's lots of driving.
The really popular restaurants that like Hamburger Hamlet and the Japanese place that aren't very good food, but they're very popular and people go there a lot.
Yeah. So like, anyway, I guess I'm just saying that I kind of like the comparison of, Woody's New York for Brooks' LA. Then one last observation I have, just back to like 1981, is, I might have said this before, but he's kind of a proto yuppie. And what I mean is, he's, as a character, specific character, he's pretty unpleasant, but Albert doubles it and also makes, he's representing a pretty unpleasant kind of person. The kind of person that like the Dead Kennedys would write a song about or something. And the kind of person who could have gone to Woodstock, they're the right age, but they just didn't, you know, like, and it's basically a proto yuppie thing, you know, and it's like, and certainly you see that with like picking up on the health craze, which is very yuppie, like, hey, why are you working out? To be super healthy? No, to look good, you know, that kind of thing. And like it's all bourgeois, like I'm going to spend too much money on running shoes, you know. So he's an unpleasant yuppie, and that's the comedy. And I just find that really appealing because that didn't happen. I can't think of another film quite like this, or another character, or another depiction, you know. But basically, he could kind of hung out with like the big chill people, you know. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, he's balancing kind of that like perfect sort of intersection of, you know, being like satirical, you know, at the same time, but also being
Good
like
point.
and like being scathing, you know, and also that sort of like Hollywood narcissism. It's like both of those things are kind of coming together.
Well,
and I think that's what
I can also say recognition. Like that's a good point, actually. Like there is, of course, satirization of the type, you know, like I'm saying, like the proto yuppie, but also there is identification, because actually, just like last time with Star Wars, there's this is baby boomer. The baby boomer thing is happening. You know what I mean? And I think that he thought and hoped and probably did somehow identify or have, you know, boomers identify with him, because a lot of them are going through the same stuff. In fact, what's the name of the movie? Modern Romance, about like you know, people and how relationships work, wherein, you know, even just 10, 15 years before, you know, it was like you marry your high school sweetheart, you know what I mean? But now it's like, hey, I'm 32 and I've now on my fourth like kind of iffy relationship, you know, and that's why I think that he really spoke to her at the end and proposed to her and got very romantic and was talking about something that was very antithetical somewhat to the modern me generation person. I want the white picket fence and kids. And it really sung to her, because that was in short supply with the singles bars and like, you know, like working out at the gym and like dating and cheap hookups, singles bars. So I think that there's a few other dynamics going on that are specific to the time.
I do also think that ending, though, plays a little bit into the trope. Like he is kind of doing the satire, if you will, of the traditional rom-com or comedy.
Hollywood ending.
Yeah, Hollywood ending. And he's playing into that, because obviously then the scroll comes up and it's like, nope, they broke up. They're getting back together, blah, blah, blah. You know, it makes that gag.
Right.
But I think it's playing into that with like how cheesy the music is and everything. But
sure. Well, I think both are happening in tandem. It's very cool.
Yes, it's great. Yeah, of course. And I think just to put a bow on all of this kind of the narcissism or the, you know, satire or all that stuff we're talking about is, you know, it's definitely apparent in this movie that, you know, and I think it's done so beautifully well. And I've said it before, I just wanted to hammer it home, is that it's like he can't let her go. Which I think rings very true. Maybe this is what Kubrick saw, is like he can't let her go because he's so terrified of his own future. You know, he's so terrified of where he's going to go as a person that he's got to, doesn't even matter who she is. It's just somebody that's going to.
Oh, it doesn't matter at all.
There's stability in
like
that. Yeah.
His current victim. Yeah.
Current victim. Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, I know. And and also he's very insecure. And he also, you know, he says these kinds of things like, you know what? It's good to be alone. It's good to be by himself, and it's like very healthy to be, you know, have alone time. And like this is all countering like this. He probably has a very clingy personality, and he probably can only like he can't like live with himself in his own skin, and needs to have the validation of her. And he's just he's a very terrible self-identity. It's very rotten, and it just nothing he's doing is having it go anywhere. But I guess the only other thing, just to circle back slightly to his career, is that he is good and he is driven. Like even more in the Foley scene, like he cares. And like a lot of people, maybe we even know in our lives, you know, and we've met and heard about, maybe read biographies, like he really comes alive when he's like, what does the space floors on the ship sound like? And he's very committed and he's very driven and he's excited. Like, all right, go. What's this? What's the weight of the stupid space transporter thing that the cheesy spaceman has to run with? And if you think about it and you look at it, that he comes alive and it's talent.
He's
but
very
it's also
happy about it.
Very
He's
driven,
happy, yeah.
and he's cheering. And it might be the only time he's happy in this film is when they get the shot. It's like that is a great Foley of the foot stomping. And anyway, I think that's one of those things where that might be a reveal somewhat of a real Albert Brooks, because that's a common thing with creative people, is that they're very driven and they don't have a space to have a real relationship. And I'm going to get heavy here for a second. Relationship to themselves. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's all just, yeah, hey. No, but it's just, but also having a relationship with them or a significant other. But that's the thing. He really comes alive in that Foley moment, and he does a great job. And he's getting very much in the minutia, and he's driven. So I think that was revealing in its own way, you know?
Marcus?
Yeah. He also I was just thinking about how he also is a little bit lazy too, and he's just so self-obsessed that he basically bails on work one night and then phones in the next day, you know, so he can just kind of like work on himself or just mope around, I guess.
Well, yeah. But then he comes into work and he comes up with this great idea.
Yeah,
and
he kills it.
And he
There's
kills
also
it.
something.
He kills it
there's
on
also
the bullying. I don't understand
Yeah.
what you mean.
Well, he's also making a piece. I'm just saying, like, he also maybe he's driven, but he also checks out and does his own, you know, and doesn't work just because he's self-obsessed.
He only doesn't work for one day. He only doesn't work for the one day.
I mean, it's also like just he's making a piece of shit too, like you said. So there's some tension in the comedy there, right? That he cares so much about this movie.
But it's personal gratification.
Good, so.
Look, a driven person is driven even if the end result is bad. It's like he knows that he killed it on that Foley. I mean, it's even doubly absurd. It's a bad movie and it's insignificant in the Foleying. And I don't think it's like a parody or a satirical thing about like, wow, you care so much about this insignificant film and this insignificant moment film. I think it's just like, just forgetting all the details of that, it's when he comes alive and he's really engaged. You know what I mean? And if he was a healthier person, he would have more engagement with himself and his significant other the way he does with the Foley.
100%.
Stunted. You guys know what I'm saying?
No, I do. But in the interest of time here, as the clock is ticking,
Oh boy.
I did want to talk about Albert Brooks as a just cultural figure. You know, here's somebody who, you know, we all know, or we all knew, you know, maybe before we got into his flicks. But like, you know, Marcus, you were saying, you know, with that archetypal haircut, you know, that everyone remembers.
Chia Pet.
Yeah, Chia Pet.
It was always made it a little difficult for me to get into it. I will admit that like Albert Brooks is someone it's having context into his career enriches my appreciation of him. I think like it's not something, it might be just my age. And like, I think he's so famous. I think everyone knows who he is, even if you've never seen one of his films. People have heard his name a lot. And I think you know what he looks like. At least that's how it was for me. And I knew that hairdo, which felt, even as a kid, it felt very dated to me. So I know it's very superficial, but it's just something that
that's his gimmick.
You know, sometimes you put up mental blocks because you look at something and you read it a certain way, and I think that's how his hair was like a signifier for me that meant like old boomer kind of thing. And there is a little bit of that boomerness. I mean, like you said, he's sort of like an archetypal boomer or something. So it's like there's some generational. There are generational things with him that make it harder for me to identify with his character or his body of work sometimes. And but I think it is something a little bit like if you're, you know, he's so influential, right? Like he was sort of like inspired a lot of the comedians that we know so well, Steve Martin, for instance, or something. So
really?
So you can, when I watch his films and I look at the year when it came out or watch some of his old comedy, you know, Tom, you sent me those awesome SNL clips.
That was great.
Those are amazing. And if you watch those, you look at the year when they're made, and then you look at what was going to come out, you understand the context of him and like how he was, like how influential he was and how ahead of his time he was. It's sort of like, it makes it, just if I can finish, like it's sort of like, you know, for me, it's like I grew up listening to Led Zeppelin or something, and like so it made it harder for me to like blues, like the authentic blues, right? Because it sounded like old to me. But like when you get older and have a more sophisticated appreciation for something, then you can like look and see how those things all kind of built up into like being, the popular form of it. I don't know. So that's sort of like my experience with Albert Brooks broadly.
Mm-hmm. Well, to speak to that, I was thinking recently, like, he's so razor sharp and so markedly different. And I'm talking early. I mean, he was on variety shows in 1970, 1971, 72. And he was doing, I'll just give you one example. Feel free to look it up, folks, on YouTube. There's one where he does a ventriloquist dummy. It's on a Ed Sullivan show. And he's doing a ventriloquist dummy. And this is the kind of thing that's hard to appreciate now because of everything that followed. It's just, he was so different. He was into cringe in like 1970. And like really 1970 was either corny, Jerry Lewis, or like Freak Out Man, George Carlin, and like kind of like Richard Pryor. And those guys are great. I'm just saying that here's this guy, Albert Brooks, and feels like it's LSD stoner kind of influenced because it's wrong. He's into wrong, cringe, anti-humor. Like he just real quick, this ventriloquist dummy thing is, he comes out and goes, "Hi everybody," and he's this ventriloquist, and he doesn't even try to not speak. So the ventriloquist is going, the dummy's going like this, and he's just talking as the dummy's talking. And then at one point he goes, hey, the phone's ringing, and he just drops the dummy on the ground on the stage, and still occasionally is talking like the dummy, like, and he's just wandering around and looking in his trunk, and he's like, yeah, no, totally, I know what you mean. But the fucking dummy, and I know he insisted that the director of the TV show, because it was live, he's like, cut to the dummy lying dead looking on the stage. And that just, all I'm saying is that just did not happen.
Right.
Quick cut to everything, and then get to Tim and Eric. And I'm not kidding. Like, really, it's that, like, is this even funny stuff? Or that, like, that show You Should Leave on Netflix. And then the other little tiny thing that's very influential, and or at least ahead of its time, is he kind of invented the mockumentary.
Right.
And and he was really fascinated by the tropes of pop culture. He made this hilarious thing that was like a mid-season replacement reel of shitty 70s television shows. And one is called Black Veterinarian. And it's just this, black man and his family. And they're talking about like, that horse is never going to walk again. And it's like, son, did you milk the cow? And it's like this big family drama of otherwise would be in like an urban context. And they're talking about ducks and like feeding the chickens. And it's just like, I know I'm saying it doesn't sound funny, but it's
that's Albert Brooks.
Right, yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is he understands the nuances of the tropes of the given media pulp culture thing, and he plays it out very straight. Yeah. Again, well, I'm repeating myself, but just he does it so dry. That's the last thing. It's like everyone. Comedy usually tells, even all through these years, that he's the driest guy. That's all. I just want to say it.
But I also just put a button on that. Another movie we should do on this show. I won't get into it too much because it's a whole other movie. But Real Life as well. Which came out a few years before this. Real Life is also ahead of that too, way ahead of the curve in terms of melding in mockumentary and making like a PBS special about like about the family, the modern family. It's
reality television.
It's reality television before reality television.
1978.
So he's on the cusp of so much. But one thing.
But Ebert no likey.
Ebert didn't like Real Life, and
really?
I kind of. No, but they both. Siskel loved Real Life, but they both did join together hand in hand, and were really into modern romance, which is nice to see.
Ebert.
Anyway, so running out of time. I know I want to get to a couple set pieces, but
I was just going to say that. Just going to set that up. So obviously, we've been talking about the themes of the movie and Albert Brooks' characters, but I guess most of this episode doesn't even sound like a freaking comedy, but there are scenes in this movie.
Really telling.
Yeah, it's just really telling him how great it is.
And then he kills his girlfriend. He puts her in the car, and then he drives off the pier. It's such a. I did not see that coming.
Right.
I love that part.
Yeah, right.
But it's a punch in the gut.
But there are scenes. All joking aside, there are scenes that are.
It's a very funny movie.
Truly, extremely funny, just from a physical comedy standpoint. I guess the one that jumps to mind, I think probably the most successful of that.
How about this? If you thought Wolf of Wall Street was the greatest depiction of a Quaalude freak out, you're wrong. Or at least there's
Pretty
heavy
good.
competition. There's some real
pretty good.
competition. I'm just saying, this is another powerhouse of a Quaalude scene.
Yeah, Modern
In,
Romance. Modern Romance's Quaalude scene walked, so Wolf of Wall Street's could potentially run. But
That's another boomer part of it that we'll never quite understand, right?
Oh, I
Quaaludes.
know.
Well, Quaaludes are gone.
Yeah,
It's part of it.
it's
what
yeah,
I'm
and that's
saying.
kind of fun, and that's kind of fun, and like you said, the dryness of this, of terms of like when he gets home and he's like, yeah, he calls his AE assistant editor guy, and he's like, yeah, I took the
another
Quaaludes.
side note, the late great Bruno Kirby
Right.
from Godfather 2, Chauffeur, Spinal Tap.
Yep.
Very funny.
And City Slickers.
No, actually, also he's great in Rob Reiner's, Nora Ephron penned When Harry Met Sally, which is all part of
right.
the family. Because Rob Reiner and Albert Brooks are like best friends. You know,
I love
and
it.
Rob Reiner.
Are you reading Yes I Can by Sammy Davis Jr.?
Right. Like
You know what that should be called?
Yeah, you know what that should be called? That scene is underrated.
oh, it's so good. That's so good. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, he calls Bruno Kirby.
Because hold
and
on,
the
to go back
Quaaludes-
to your saying, that is a fucking. They got Limo Driver in New York City down so right. Are you reading Yes I Can by Sammy Davis Jr.? All right. Anyway,
Yeah. So he's calling Bruno, his
Right.
assistant editor. No, I know.
He's calling Bruno, and he's like, "Yeah, I took the Quaalude. I took both of the Quaaludes. You took both, and
Took
so
both?
you took both, and it's great. It's a great comedic setup for the rest of the scene, and I mean, it's just amazing where
Epic.
yeah, it's so good. I mean, playing of the record, but go ahead.
Well,
I love
he
music.
plays.
My albums.
He's like, I love all my great albums. I'm going to listen to a song. I'm going to listen to some music. He's fitful. He's like, doesn't know what to do with himself, but he's also sluggy and slurry. And he goes, let me put on an album. And he just grabs it, and it's a fifth of Beethoven, the disco, Beethoven.
Like
And he
Saturday Night
goes,
Fever.
and he goes like, oh yeah, this is a good beat. He's talking to his bird, Petey, like, this is a good beat. And he's like, oh, this makes me sad. And it's like, it's so demented. And then he has lots of like cringy phone calls that he won't remember, and he's like insulting this guy. You're a trash can, and
I love how real time it is. The whole scene is like,
yeah, I was thinking about that. It plays out essentially,
yeah, so real
all the
time.
way,
And
all the
yeah.
way. You got it. Whatever.
no, I was just gonna say, and like him interacting with the bird too is so good. Petey.
Petey.
Yeah, like,
Petey, Ellen. I got a lot of great friends. I got friends.
Yeah.
Calling random people. No, so that's a big set piece. We were talking about supporting cast. Of course, Bruno Kirby, love him, miss him, and but then also his brother. Well, let's just set this up because this is so fun. There was an old Borscht Belt comedian named Pak Yakakis, which was his stage name, and he had a couple kids, and he had them before he died on the radio. Albert Brooks's father was doing some shtick on live radio in like 1957 or something, and he's like, "Hey everybody, I don't feel so good. Hey, I had to sit down," and he fucking has a heart attack and dies on the radio.
Wow,
and it's a
I didn't know
recording.
that.
Jeez.
Yeah, isn't that insane?
Whoa.
Good
And-
God.
But yeah, I know. But he decides to call his son Albert, and the real name of that family is Einstein.
right.
So Park Yakakis is whatever Einstein, and he goes, I'm going to call him Albert. So he's Albert Einstein, and which is insane. And he changes it to Brooks. But his older brother, is Super Dave Osborne, who
Funkhauser.
passed away recently. What's that?
Funkhauser, for those who are Curb fans out
Right,
there.
Funkhauser from Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he was Super Dave Osborne, who would do this is more cringe and like fail wrongness, where he would do terrible Evil Knievel stunts, like that didn't go well, like he didn't go anywhere in the rocket or whatever.
Like ones where he got hurt in the end, right? Like he
It was just cringe, like fail. It was like fail comedy. So anyway, there's a great scene I mentioned earlier where he's so deadpan, so great with his brother. Albert comes in and wants to get into jogging, health, vitamins, running, and like anyway, there's a great set piece there. Yeah, vitamins. I need more E vitamins,
Yeah.
And anyway, just it's great to see his brother and him, because I don't think that happened much. That wasn't really documented so much, but him and Super Dave Hard, it was very cool.
Also, and obviously, just that jogging scene, just to shout it out for a minute, is another kind of famous moment from the movie, and it's awesome. Just that set piece of him running right into the telephone booth.
I know,
classic shit.
And that's good. That's good physical comedy.
Yeah.
Well, he's like this. He's like stretching, and he's like 1, 2, 3. I don't even miss her. 1, 2, 3, and he's going like. Creeping up, like run, phone booth.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
He's horrible. He's so horrible,
Yeah, it's pretty
and just like, and he's just got it can get pretty OJ, like that thing where he's like sort of casually snooping, and he's like, oh, it's a phone bill, and it's like, well, I could let that go and say, hey, that's her phone bill, but no, what is it? And it's like, oh, and he's like adding things up, like, so you called New York City at midnight, and then the next morning at 7 a.m., and both were like 2-hour phone calls. Like, it's got to be her lover, and it's just like, it makes you kind of sick. It's
it
very
follows
gross.
It follows
I
that
can see
thread.
women not liking this film.
Yeah,
finding it just unpleasant.
It follows that thread really in a disturbing way.
No,
Marcus?
and you know what? You're right, because just the last thought is just what you said. It's a little bifurcated, the film, where it's desperate longing, but then the second half really exposes and elaborates on the obsession, and it gets very horror movie, and it gets a little hard to watch. Like when he's looking at her in the phone booth, it's like I said, it's out of a horror movie.
Marcus?
I was just thinking, just over the course of this conversation, just as we're breaking down the character and like what works about the movie and what doesn't, or not what doesn't, or what makes it different, right? We've been saying a lot that there's not a lot of films like this, and one thing that's occurring to me is that like it's the character itself, like he's so repellent, like you said, and it's not like typical in like American comedy for that, right? Like we want someone with redeeming qualities. We want someone that either pays for everything they've done that's wrong, or they've got some warmth to them, some redeeming characteristic,
or they learned a life lesson. It's like
exactly. They have to learn something.
I've been a cad. Like let me listen to you now. Like he's the same guy, first frame, last frame.
And the movie just perpetuates that toxicity even into the credits of the film. It's amazing.
It's so tense. How tense is that car ride to the cabin? It's like, well, it's like a kiss is more important than life. And she's like, sure, because he's trying to kiss her and drive. Yeah. She's like, you're gonna get in an accident.
But Marcus, what were you gonna say?
I was just thinking like how people take. I mean, you can see like echoes of this type of this character in other comedies. People that behave badly and people that are terrible people in comedies, but. Like you said, like I was saying, there's some sort of redeeming thing or some warmth thing or something that they pay for about it. You could kind of see like how people like down the line might take this sort of as like a framework, but retool it a little bit, make the character a little bit warmer or whatever, and that I could see. I don't know what the state if this movie was a hit or not. I suspect it wasn't, but
okay, not really.
But I could see where people would make little tweaks to the formula and down the road, and like it's sort of like I'm just imagining it like the British Office or something, like how at that time it was like really repellent for Americans to have this character be. Now it's different, 2022. Right. But so when they adapted it for America, they gave the boss like some warmth and some redeeming qualities, because that's what we want. That's what we want as Americans.
Between season 1 and 2, you're absolutely right. That's a really good example, and I guess that's an American thing, and certainly not a UK thing. But in season 1 of The Office, if we all remember, Michael was repellent and alienating, and not unlike someone like an Albert Brooks. And then they warned the beginning of season 2. Like during the, giving out the Dundies or whatever, and it's total like warmth and pathos, I think is the word, and it's just like, why? Like, I really don't understand that.
Why does it have to be relatable? Why does it have to be? Why do we have to identify with this? And hopefully,
something about American audiences.
Hopefully, we don't fucking identify with.
I do go why, and at the same time, I understand it too. Do you know what I mean? Just because we grew up in this culture, like I feel it. I open myself up to new experiences and different tastes or whatever, obviously, but I do understand where people are, like where the general public comes from. I understand why those things don't work. Just not sophisticated. I just like at my gut. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
As,
Well, Americans are a toddler civilization.
yes.
It's a very immature country, literally and figuratively, and it just can't handle the truth. You know, it just doesn't like things like someone. It's all fairy tale. Like someone, like, don't they go to the castle and get married, and they shine with the light of like self-understanding and awareness and, you know, mutual love, and they learn and grow. And it's like, if you don't have that, you know, even Annie Hall has a little bit of sentimentality and growth, which is fine. And he got away with it. But,
Certainly.
But fucking Modern Romance is ice cold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even Annie Hall, you
Yeah.
know, has some sentimentality.
It is
That's the
ice
thing.
cold.
It's
Yeah.
so ice cold.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised anybody saw it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not for everyone. And again, I
No.
could see so many people repelled by it. It's not, when is this going to be funny? I hate him. Like, you know, like, I'm bored.
Well, you know,
Why
America-
are they talking about editing? What's going on? I mean, I would get all critiques of this film. It's not for
Yeah, I mean, you know, and just like the our society, you know, in terms of movies and everything, it's so capitalist driven. So it's let's make it as general audience and as wide as possible, so
Yes.
everybody can appreciate it, and broad identification. And there's only a very small subsect of people who would get something out of this movie with a character that repellent. I mean, we look at this now and we go, holy shit, like this is saying something about the darker side of the male ego and the male sort of narcissism, and it's really actually quite poignant in that way, even though the character never gets redeemed or never gets anything, because
But we
that's
have
much,
some insights, and
Right.
you know,
but that's much more
Yeah.
honest. That's much more honest to because
Even
no
that-
one ever has that realization. Sorry.
That instinct to have those kind of characters existed back then too. It's not like we invented it, like, you know, around the Office time or whatever. You know, like, so to have characters with redeeming qualities, and it's interesting. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm just theorizing now. If he grew up in a showbiz family, like you're saying, you know, like he's probably, that is something else that he's reacting against. I guess is creating this character that exists in this world that's, you know, he's sort of, I guess he's fighting against the way that comedic heroes would work in other things. So I don't, maybe it was, I'm sure it was a conscious
yeah,
thing. To
I know
try
what
to,
you
like,
mean.
play,
Like,
you
he's
know.
not Danny Kaye or something like that. Yeah,
Right, and
also,
yeah. Go ahead.
also, I think there's a general bitterness. It's like, it might
Yeah.
not seem like, but he's got that
That's what I meant,
post Watergate, like post Watergate, you know, fuck you kind of attitude, especially right then.
And the
so he
editing
was-
scenes too, with entertainment business in general, and growing. If you grew up in the entertainment world and you saw your dad's weird carny fucking friends and all that shit, you would definitely be able to sharpen your details.
Absolutely.
And,
like, how about this? It's like someone like George Kennedy, like, hey, that's a funny story. I should tell that next time on Merv Griffin. You know,
Yeah.
like it's that kind of patter,
Yeah.
you know, showbiz patter. That's true. Yeah, he was.
I love
I don't
that.
know how much it's Borscht Belt showbiz. I don't know how that relates to Hollywood, but he was a Hollywood brat kind of, because, you know, again, he was best friends with Rob Reiner and Carrie Fisher, because they were all kind of sons of showbiz people.
Right.
Carl Reiner,
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher. That's what's her name? Debbie Reynolds. You know,
Yeah.
and they're like best friends. Actually, side note is that Debbie Reynolds did Mother with Albert Brooks in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
She came out of retirement after like 25 years,
That's right.
only because dear Albert, you know, my daughter loves you so much. I loved you when you'd come over and play. He always wanted to get them together. That's cool. I'm just saying, like, there's a weird kind of world that Albert is from that is somewhat unrelatable to a lot of people.
Last thing I want to get is just a little
Hollywood kid.
just a 1 fucking hour Easter egg, of course, because we love dunking on Peter B on this show, and of course I just had to laugh just for all of us
did?
here with
What?
that
Oh,
with
right.
that reference where he's going to meet Ellen for the
Right.
date, and he's like, "You work for Peter Bogdanovich? We met at the Nickelodeon premiere."
Yes. That's my favorite shit ever. The woman he calls while he's on Quaaludes and can't remember who she is like, right, I met you during the Nickelodeon rap party. Nickelodeon 1976. Like, it's like the middle of the flops.
Yeah.
Or it's almost the tail end.
Oh, it's in there.
Past Daisy Miller. It's
Yeah.
past At Long Last Love. And then fucking someone paid Bogdanovich to make another movie, Nickelodeon, that no one wanted and no one saw. And I love that. So, yeah, that's the kind of detail that he's so great at.
Bing, bing, bing. 100%.
Oh, somebody went 3 seconds over.
I think they did. Is there a penalty
Get out of
for
my
that?
pay.
Yeah. All right. So there we go. That was 1 fucking hour on Modern Romance, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning
Yes.
in. We did it. I feel like there's a lot left on the table.
There is. There always is.
There always is. This show is inherently flawed with its framework, but
And
great
with the
movie.
F word in the title.
Yeah, seriously.
We're just dinged from jump.
Doomed from birth, born dead.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go out of your way to see Modern Romance. Check out Real Life. Defending Your Life is another great film, too.
That's
And
great. Lost in America is
Lost in
fucking
America.
awesome. It's awesome. That's a yuppie movie. He really
that
skews
is.
the yuppies in that one.
100%.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's great.
So good.
So all sorts of great stuff. One thing I didn't mention is you might have noticed my background's a little bit different. I'm still on the road, still here in Hollywood, so not back at the 1 fucking hour HQ, but we'll be next week. And let's talk about next week. Marcus, you're on your European vacation, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to. I'll see you for my Irish fans. I'll see you coming to Ireland and Portugal. So
Dick.
keep an eye
You'll
out
be
for
down
me.
at you'll be down at O'Malley's signing autographs for everybody, and on June 24th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so I got some coverage lined up for my 1 fucking hour work duties. So,
Right.
So you guys
Right.
can continue on. I got someone to cover for me.
Keep
Yep.
the fire burning.
Yep, yeah, we sure do. We're going to be tagging in Raimi to come back next week, and we asked her what film she wanted to bring on the show, and we were both, Tom and I, thrilled about it. So Marcus will be out next week, but he'll be back the following week. And next week with Raimi, we're going to cover one flipping hour, excuse me,
Yep.
on personal...
Finding Nemo.
yeah, right.
Finding Dory.
Yeah, Finding
Oh,
Dory.
right.
Get it right. With Albert Brooks' voice.
That's right.
That's why I came up with it.
Oh.
Nice. Okay, we're late to the party. 1 flipping hour on personal best. Okay, you might not have heard of this film, but it is a gem of the early 80s, starring
Great.
Marianne
Talk about a
Hemingway.
bummer.
Yeah, total bummer. Marianne Hemingway film on her road to the what do they call it? The Olympics. That's right. And it's a sort of track and field lesbian drama. I'm very excited about this.
Well, and the thing is, it is a very special film, actually, for really almost, not almost, but for a particular reason. It's the one directorial effort by Robert Towne,
right.
the the legendary.
He wrote Chinatown. He wrote Chinatown.
Yeah,
right?
all kinds of. Well, he was a script doctor all over the place. He was all over all your favorite '70s movies, basically.
Right.
And a compatriot of the whole Raging Bulls and Easy Riders world. And he only made one film. He wrote and directed it, and very challenging, very very heavy. We're back to the early '80s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a year after Modern Romance, and I really look forward to it. I need to dust it off. I need to rewatch
Dust it off.
and then maybe
It's-
yeah. And
Well, it's got
by the way, I thought. Oh, please.
I was just gonna say it has some of the best frickin' slow motion you'll ever see is in this film. Just had to throw that out because I love me some slow motion. But go on, what were we gonna say?
Slow sports is what it's all about.
Exactly.
Slow motion sports. But no, I was just going to say, we got some stuff cooking, because I was like, let's have a little fun. Star Wars was fun. And I thought Modern Romance was like, oh, it'll be fun. It's a comedy, but it wasn't.
Not fun.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is we're going to lighten the mood maybe after Personal Best and have something, pretty sparkly and fun, and maybe even a fail, because that's a part of the tradition of the show. We're like a big fat fail. We call them magnolias around here.
Steel
So
Magnolias?
stay tuned.
Yeah.
No,
What
like
was
Magnolia,
No, I know.
and-
I know.
Yeah,
That's not-
I know. But like,
what- yeah, right.
so stay tuned for that. We're gonna get
Yeah.
kind of playful and start, because I was thinking, guys, the first movie we did was a Magnolia. We did Psycho 98.
That was our second film. Come on now.
Oh, after Deliverance. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. So, but anyway, it was early, and I kind of missed that. I think it's gonna be the summer, so stay tuned for all kinds of stuff. We're cooking up new titles.
Yeah. Definitely.
But
so
next week,
Let's do a fail. Yeah.
oh yeah, fails are so much fun. Fails and Magnolias, as we call them. There's so many out there. There's so many to do. But all right, everybody. Well, that was 1 fucking hour again on Modern Romance. Marcus, safe travels. We will see you week after next. Come back in one piece. And yeah, everybody check out Personal Best. Get that pre-watch in. I think it's just on Amazon. It should be everywhere. So it's either Amazon or Criterion Channel, I think. Either one, it's there. Check it out. It's an amazing film, and it's definitely around. But we can't let you out of here without your
Moment
of Zen. And all right, everybody, have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week. All right, everybody, bye.
Bye.
Well, we're almost out of time. You know, we'll be filming all around the country in the next few months. If you see us, please don't hesitate to come up and say,
I'm Jack from Cincinnati. I enjoy you.
well, thank you, Jack.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That looked good. That's good. That's good. Okay.